With service second to none, Deary Brothers Lincoln of Iowa City has been earning the business of customers in Johnson County and the surrounding area since 2010. Deary Brothers Lincoln is a full-service dealership offering new Lincoln custom orders with a dedicated sales, service, and parts department. They are proud to be here for you. As a happy customer, the entire Deary staff was unbelievable to work with. They found the vehicles our family was looking for, and we will definitely be doing business with them in the future. Check out Deary Brothers Lincoln on Facebook and follow them on Twitter at Deary Bros. Hello and welcome to the Leave Your Legacy podcast. I'm your host, Kris Murray. On today's episode, we have a personal trainer, CrossFit guru, and owner of ZOARC Athletics apparel company that actually carries Kris and Keegan's signature apparel, Connor Weitz. Welcome to the podcast, Connor. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing
Thanks
good,
for having
man.
me. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Well, we've gotten to know each other a lot over the last year. Obviously, with ZOARC and the partnership that you have with Kris and Keegan, it's been great. I think with the NIL thing, it was a great opportunity for Kris and Keegan to get started in and to partner with someone that I think is doing a lot for his community, the community of Iowa City. But you're a Dubuque native. So yes. Tell us a little bit about growing up in Dubuque and really kind of how you got to this point. But I think it's always interesting to hear about people's upbringing and everything, and you're an athlete. So, yeah, tell us about growing up in Dubuque.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, grew up in Dubuque, Iowa, and went to high school at Dubuque Senior High School. And so as a kid, was into all sports, sorts of different athletics, played a wide variety of sports as a young kid, got into wrestling, soccer, basketball, football, track and field, kind of, everything, just kind of getting my feet wet in everything. The first sport I really kind of got into a lot was wrestling as a young kid. It's kind of in my family. My cousin was a wrestler here at the University of Iowa and won a national championship. And
who's that?
Cliff Moore.
Okay.
And so his mom is my godmother,
okay,
and my dad's sister. And so my dad really, got me into that sport as a young kid. And I liked it and everything, but I think I got burnt out to an extent, probably by the third, fourth grade.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, I was like, because you're doing that, you're going every weekend and, doing all the different clinics and everything. And, but I think the one thing that doesn't necessarily kind of fit my body type necessarily, but I found basketball.
Right.
Around that third grade is when I really started playing basketball, and I think that's what made me want to make that switch because they're in the same season.
Right.
During that winter time, and so really kind of found a passion for basketball, and so basketball and football were kind of my main focuses up until high school, and then I really wanted to play basketball more and more, and so I just kept playing. Like I mentioned, went to Dubuque Senior, so and then from there played one season at Loris.
Okay.
And so, but kind of wanted to focus more on academics and found my passion in strength and conditioning. And as a kid, like I was, like I mentioned, doing all those different sports and wanting to become a better athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to figure out kind of how to do that. And because I didn't necessarily have the guidance from a strength and conditioning standpoint or from a nutrition standpoint or even understanding the importance of sleep and recovery and all of that. So I was kind of like up until probably, freshman year, I was like kind of like a chubby, little kid, like with the baby fat trying to like play these sports. And so I was like skilled because I would play all the time, practice all the time, but my athleticism was what I really wanted to kind of focus on becoming better at. And so that's where my passion for strength and conditioning came in. And so
yeah, that's awesome, because I know you got a degree in Health and Human Physiology.
Yep.
And I know you've been training. So after you got your degree and everything, like what was that process? Did you go right into personal training, or did you do some other things? Because I think what's interesting is especially, and we'll get into it with ZOARC, like there's that connection of individual personal training, and then you have the athletic apparel side. So yeah, once you got your degree, like what was life like after college?
Yeah. So, I mean, even just kind of leading into when I graduated, I first got my first certification in strength and conditioning around 2013.
Okay.
So I would have been about a sophomore or junior. It was between my sophomore and junior year of college.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where I started doing personal training, group classes, coaching, all of that. And then at that time, when I transferred to the University of Iowa, that was my junior year. And I was taking a class for my major, but it was for specifically kind of geared towards training athletes.
Okay.
And it was with one of the strength and conditioning coaches here on staff, and he kind of became a mentor of mine. And through that process, I did an internship with the University of Iowa strength and conditioning department. And so kind of got into the strength and conditioning aspect of being able to see the different athletes work. That's a whole pretty much every sport is in there.
Yeah.
Inside of Carver, training from soccer, basketball, baseball, track and field. Kind of got my feet wet into that, and did a student practicum with the strength and conditioning department for the football team as well.
Okay.
So kind of got exposure to pretty much, every sport besides wrestling. They kind of, do their own thing. And,
yeah.
But so that was kind of where I really found a passion more and more and more for optimizing the physical performance on
Right.
the athlete side, all the different aspects that go into the training from there. And so then I graduated, and kind of the plan was I'd always been focusing on pursuing another degree after the bachelor's degree. So I kind of wanted to get into physical therapy.
Right.
And so the plan then was to go into physical therapy, took a year off from school, and kind of started doing my own thing with training from the personal training
Mm-hmm.
standpoint of doing individual training, kind of doing my own thing, but then also at the same time continued my connection there with the strength and conditioning department at Iowa. And then through that, really, continued to build my passion through that, and got into physical therapy school back in Dubuque. And so from physical therapy school, I kind of during that year is when I came up with the idea for ZOARC.
Gotcha.
So it was like kind of a year of like soul searching
Mm-hmm.
type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
where I was like, what do I want to do? What's my passion? How do I want to, really kind of dive into this? And with the plan having been applying for physical therapy school, getting accepted, I was like, all right, I'm going to go, I'm going to pursue this. And then when I got there, the AD for, this was at Clark University.
Mm-hmm.
And the AD there was like, hey, we want to open the opportunity for you to coach the on the strength and conditioning side for our athletes, the basketball team, the men's basketball team, women's soccer, and cross country, and some of the other athletes and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And so I was doing that, doing the personal training, kind of already had ZOARC had already kind of started a little bit. And, with all of that going on, I was like, man, I gotta choose, because
Yeah.
things are starting to build with
Right,
ZOARC
right.
and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, I kind of wanted to pursue ZOARC, and so haven't looked back since then.
Yeah, no, it's the one thing that's interesting is, like, first of all, let's be honest. I'm being honest. Like, I didn't know what ZOARC was until, Keegan came to me and was like, hey, Dad, I might have this NIL opportunity. And obviously you start doing a little bit of research on things. And you know, I always ask about like the motivation in doing things, and you've talked a little bit about it. But with ZOARC, the name is pretty unique in what it means. And so you've peppered in that you started ZOARC, but I want our listeners and viewers to know like what ZOARC means. And then what was the motivation of starting it? Did you start ZOARC as just, this is going to be my fitness, my personal training company, or did you start it because you wanted to have a fitness apparel company? And so those are a couple things that I think would be really unique for everyone to hear, is just what ZOARC means and what was the motivation for starting it.
Yeah. So first, kind of my first branch off into doing my own thing with my own fitness company. It was actually going to be called just like Connor Weitz Fitness,
Okay.
and I was just training people and stuff like that. And like the apparel side didn't really come in right away necessarily. And I was thinking, I want to be able to create something that is bigger than myself, that's kind of reaches more people and can make a bigger impact. And I knew, like, for me, I can't just do that by myself.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, what are my passions? My passions are health, fitness, athletic performance, and positivity, the positive psychology side of things. And so I built a brand around that, those kind of core values, and wanted to create something that can, bring different athletes, like you mentioned, Keegan and Kris, and, a variety of different athletes over the years have represented the brand. And I want to create something that then gives them the platform and gives them the opportunity to have that positive impact, whichever direction that they want to go.
Right.
And so, it's created something that, like I said, I want it to be bigger than myself, and that can give back to the youth around and to the community, and create a lasting impact that could hopefully, one day when I, am no longer here, that it could continue potentially to, help serve to different people. And it's been a incredible ride for sure.
Yeah, no, I think it's unique. We call this the Leave Your Legacy podcast because everyone is leaving something. They're passing something on, whether it's positive or negative. And that's one of the things that I feel a lot of people are really coming out of COVID have really started to kind of like soul search. And even though this started before COVID, but it's still one of those things, like, people are starting to do a lot more. Okay, what's the impact am I having? Who am I influencing? This is more than just about material things that I collect and things like that. So I think it's so cool that as a and I'm going to call you a young person, have thought about like what you want to leave behind, what your legacy is. But uniquely, you've been able to work with a lot of University of Iowa athletes. And so, and we'll talk about the Stead Family Children's Hospital as well, but who are some of the athletes that you started out working with? And then I know you're working with Kris and Keegan, but are there any athletes that you have that in the future that you're looking at partnering with as well?
Yeah. So the first kind of, when I was in that phase between going from just strictly training to going into the apparel side and building the apparel brand, athlete Marvin McNutt, former Iowa athlete, he was very and has continued to support the brand, to this day. And so he was one of a few of the athletes that, had been training kind of with me, were Anthony Clemens.
Yep.
And then Peter Jock started working with the brand, and Aaron White started. They were like, hey, we want to just support you and wear, the shirt. I would just kind of like give them a t-shirt.
Yeah.
I didn't understand necessarily the marketing and how powerful that is.
Right.
And it's like, okay, then, they start posting on social media or things like that. And then you go and you kind of realize that different individuals that you don't even know, like people would just kind of come up to me and be like, hey, and then this happened. I mean, even, you know, very recently with, I was just out on Melrose before a football game, and somebody walked up to me and pointed to the logo on my shirt, and and then he said, hey, something about Kenyon Murray.
Yeah.
Was like related, you know, there's the connection there. So it's like, and I had never seen this guy before, you know, and I was like, you know, and he said like, thank you so much for what you're doing. And so you don't even understand, like, I don't even understand the impact that it's making. And so I'm just grateful for the opportunity. And so, yeah, just, like you mentioned, a lot of different athletes have represented it. And that's, like I mentioned, that's the big part for me, is that I want to create something for them, the athletes that will kind of help their legacy as well, of however they want to, whichever direction that they kind of want to go. And it's grown into the personal, kind of lines, and that's become its own thing. You know, with the different stores that carry it and stuff like that, and doing the different events, having and seeing the impact that makes, having, you know, the kids come out and all the fans are you know, having a great time. And
the like, Shields thing was wild.
Yeah, that was
that was wild.
Like, I did not expect it to be. I mean, like, your biggest hope is that it's going to be like just packed, and we walk in there and the line is going around every single place you can even look. It's like a huge line, and they had to cut, you know, it
was crazy. But that's the thing. Like, you talk about the impact, right? And I think NIL came along at the right time for not only the University of Iowa athletes and obviously Kris and Keegan, but for you as well, to be able to kind of, one, like, you were kind of thrust into this whole marketing thing, like, how do we do this? And you and I have worked so collaboratively on what we've done with Kris and Keegan, and that's been fun. But, you know, we're referencing the Shields event. So we had a signing with Kris and Keegan, and I think it was from 1 to 4 we were going to do. It was like a 3-hour span. Mm-hmm. I literally had people, we had people messaging us, coming from like Minnesota, like driving 4 hours to stand in line, and they were lining up. I mean, early? It was like between 8 and 9, maybe 10 o'clock. Yeah, and the line was out the door, and it was crazy. So ask this, like, what did that feel like for you when you walk in? And granted, it's Kris and Keegan that are the marquee names, but then it's like they're buying ZOARC stuff and they're ordering all this stuff. Like, what did that feel like for you as the owner and collaborator to see all these people show up at Shields?
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible, you know, feeling, just to see the support that's able to be created through the community. So many people want to support Kris and Keegan, and they want to, you know, meet them, and I think the impact also is that, like, when we're at the games, like, and you just kind of look around and you see the different fans that are wearing the merchandise, it's almost like I have to kind of like take a step back. And it was like the same thing. It's like I got to kind of like soak that in, and I'm kind of a person that's very like I'll kind of try to do that in the moment, and try to be as present as possible, you know, not necessarily trying to think about what can we do in the future, having a bunch of different things kind of going on. I try to like really enjoy that. And yeah, like you said, it was a really cool experience.
Yeah, it was. But I think the best part about what you do is, because when the NIL popped up, Kris and Keegan really didn't want to do it. It was one of those things where, like, you know, we don't want to go out and we don't need the money kind of thing. And we talked to them about like what the platform of NIL would allow them to do, and that would be to help raise awareness and money for different organizations. And obviously you're partnered with the Stead Family Children's Hospital. That's where proceeds from Keegan's line will go to there. Kris's line proceeds will go to Special Olympics of Eastern Iowa. So how did you get hooked up with, and I got to tell you, we saw Camden at a volleyball game.
Yeah.
McKenna's volleyball game. It was really, really cool. We took pictures and everything, but I know we can get into Camden and her family, but how did you get connected with the Stead Family Children's Hospital through ZOARC?
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of, when I started the apparel side, I wanted every kind of piece of apparel to have some sort of a message to it. Mm-hmm. Now, as it's kind of become more and, bigger, you have those items or things that just kind of say like ZOARC, just like kind of have the logo. But now that has a meaning to it, what a lot of people don't necessarily know is that the word ZOARC means maintaining life. And so that, can take on a meaning of its own and kind of represent kind of a variety of different meanings. But that really spoke to me, and that's why I, wanted to pursue that. And so every different apparel item that we do, I try to have some sort of a meaning tied into it. And so, doing different things for different causes and trying to give back as much as possible. When I started with like $200 on t-shirts, like in my parents' basement type thing. And just from there, it was never about selling apparel. Like it's kind of deeper than that. Like I didn't say, oh, like, hey, this is a cool t-shirt. Like, let's just sell a bunch of t-shirts. Right. That was never, it was, what's the deeper meaning behind it? What's the impact that we can leave? And so through that, creating different initiatives, raising money for different causes. And so one, as you mentioned, that we've connected with has been the Children's Hospital. And that's been really amazing, just in terms of, like you mentioned, getting to connect with Camden and the different kids and trying to help, them with whatever we can do. So, over the years, we've done different events where, like we'll have Camden come out and,
she's awesome.
Meeting the fans, and she's like a celebrity, herself, signing those, and you made a joke at the Shields event. You're like, man, you're gonna have to start paying Camden now. And I was like, yeah, we got to get her on a contract. And so, it's been great. I mean, even, like with the Dubuque Fighting Saints, hockey team, we went out and I was able to push Camden out on the ice, and she was able to do the puck drop.
Oh, sweet.
Just stuff like that. I mean, it's bigger than it's bigger than just like the brand. It's what's outside of that, and I don't think a lot of brands necessarily kind of have that view towards how they approach things. And so that's a big thing that I try to take pride in, is just try to approach things in a way of what's the impact.
Yeah. No, it is great. And I think, everybody, and which is great, they talk about the wave, after the end of the first quarter, like that's fantastic. But there's little things like that, like, your ZOARC has a great relationship with the Children's Hospital, and it's created a great relationship for Keegan in that respect. And obviously Kris, who has, made the decision that his proceeds will go to Eastern Iowa Special Olympics because of his connection with Miles Shekel, who is the cousin of his girlfriend. So like there's all these connections, but ZOARC is connecting with so many different good causes and helping so many people. I think that's what leaving a legacy is all about. It's not necessarily about the things that you do, but it's about the imprint that you leave on people. Like you said, just making a difference. And even if that difference is just with one person, like it's worth it, right? It's really worth it. So what does the future look like for ZOARC? I know you and I have discussed some different projects that are going on, but what's in the near future for ZOARC right now as you look to continue to do different things in the community, but also build the brand and obviously work with different athletes. So what's the plans for you?
Yeah. So, I think a lot of it, as you mentioned, kind of working with, different athletes, want to build on that. I think that's really created a great opportunity for, not only the athletes, but also for the brand, like you mentioned. And, I think that that is a great place to really focus on with the brand is and then bringing, like, I kind of want to build that in a slow, don't want to necessarily have like hundreds of different athletes out there. Sorry, I've got, but I don't want to have like necessarily like 100 different athletes out there that are like wearing the gear, but just have it where it's like, okay, these, let's just say 10 athletes really have their focus on what they want to do with the brand. It's like, why do these specific athletes want to represent the brand, and what do they want to do? How, and so that's, for me, it's how can I help them build their brand in a sense?
Yeah, no, I think, and you've kind of danced around this, and hopefully I'm not putting you on the spot. But one of the projects that I'm excited about is the comic book that you have coming out. So I know it's pretty unique in the fact that you take these athletes who are already viewed by some kids as like superhuman, superheroes, but you're actually giving them a platform to become superheroes. So, without giving up too much, kind of where are you with the comic book, as far as like when will we see like the first issue of this ZOARC comic book that's coming out?
Yeah, so we kind of put in quite a bit of work on a comic book over the past few years, and it's something that I never really thought I would do. Yeah. It's not something that an avenue that I even really expected taking place. But a gentleman by the name of Ron Avery, who he reached out to me a few years ago and said, "Hey, I've been following ZOARC and what you've been doing, and I've got something that I want to run by you for an idea." And so we kind of met, and he had mentioned the possibility of collaborating on a book. And so at first I was, I kind of thought it over. I was like, I don't know if it's the right time, or, and the more and more I thought about it, actually someone who kind of has inspired me quite a bit over the years has been Kobe Bryant. And so I followed him, like he was my favorite player as a kid. And so he impacted me on that level of like watching his game and stuff like that. But his mentality is different than anybody else, I think, on the planet. And so being able to then study his mindset, and I've listened to like every single interview that he's ever done, I feel like, just trying to take bits and pieces of kind of that. And one thing that he was actually really focused on pursuing was a book series. And so he was trying to leave his legacy by creating content through books and through, different media that would help the youth and kind of teach the youth different lessons and give back in that way. Because, he said, like your impact is, if you have a positive impact on one person, as you mentioned, and they have a positive impact on another person, and then another person, that's how your legacy can kind of just go on forever. Yep. And I listened to an interview where he was talking about his book series, and that inspired me, and I was like, all right, we're doing it. Yeah. And so from that day on, then we kind of put things into motion, got different athletes signed on. And so it's going to be Keegan and Kris are going to be part of the book. And then we've also got Micah Hyde, Megan Gustafson, Christian Kirksey, and Anthony Hitchens are going to be the athletes that will be involved with this first book. And then we're looking at doing, a series. And so I know this is like a long-winded answer to like your question. But so, then over the years, we've got everything kind of lined up from, the writing aspect. we've got different illustrations of what we want, from the athlete standpoint of how we want these different illustrations to look. And so we've got now to the point where we started out, we're like, oh, we're just going to do like a short 30 page thing.
Yeah.
So now it's like 100 page.
I had to break it up into like,
right,
okay,
into like issues or something.
Volume 1, volume 2. Yeah, for sure.
But we've got a 100 page thing now laid out of we've got kind of like the words and what pictures are going to go in, and we've really tried to get into the very small details of that's something that for me, I'm like a very super like detail oriented, like this little thing, that little thing, it's like, okay, now we've got it to the point where we're getting really close, so I can at least say coming soon type of thing, but we don't have a date set or anything like that yet.
Okay. No, I think it's going to be fun. I think it's really interesting to do something like that because of what I said earlier is how, especially kids, look up to athletes and you really make an impact. That was one of the things with Chris and Keegan. I said from the day they committed to Iowa was like becoming a Hawkeye, you become something different to the fans, whether they're adult fans or youth fans, and it's a responsibility. And I think this is a great way of kind of taking that and giving it, I don't know, I mean, some panache and like you have these great athletes that performed at Iowa and now you put them in this superhero role. I think it's really cool. And I can't wait for the series to come out and to be able to share that with other people. All right. So, you've talked about legacy and what you want to do. Like, have you thought about what the word legacy means to you?
Yeah, I think the word legacy, what it means to me is it's what impact that you can have on, like you mentioned, the maybe it's like the kids that look up to you, or even a friend of yours or a family member, or I think it's how did you make that person feel? How did that person kind of what were you able to do to help someone else, whether it's achieve their goals or just in any way, and then maybe they take something from that and then they're in turn able to give back in a way to the next generation and the next, and then it kind of lives on through that.
That's awesome. Well, okay, so with all my guests, I do rapid fire questions at the end. All right, so I've got 3 for you. All right, first one. What is the last series that you binged on?
So I'm not a big watching series really. But one show I'd say is The Office. Just because it's like, for me, I'm like, if I'm gonna sit down and watch it, I don't want to have to really think. Yeah. And I can just be on my phone half the time and look up and get a laugh or something, you know?
Because it's coming. Right. Dude, I fall asleep to The Office, dude. I love that show. Yeah. All right. Number 2, what if you had a lifetime supply of one thing, what would it be?
I was thinking about this earlier, and I don't want to go with a deep answer, so I'm just going to go with coffee.
Coffee? Okay. All right.
Cold brew. It's got to be cold brew. And I was like, people that know me right now, they always see me with it. But I didn't start drinking coffee until I was 23.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So. Yeah. Michelle got me into it. So I still don't do the cold brew stuff. Most of it's hot for me. All right. Third one. What is your favorite season and why?
Favorite season, I would say my favorite weather in general is 70s and sunny and just, and so really, if I had to choose one, I'd probably say spring.
Okay.
Gotcha. Spring, just the weather starts getting a little bit warmer and can be outside and enjoying it that way, fresh air.
Yeah. I'm a fall guy because I like wearing sweaters and stuff like that. So, but I love that. So, all right. So thanks for joining us. Today I want to leave you with a quote from American theologian Leonard Sweet. What you do is your history. What you set in motion is your legacy. A big thank you to Connor Weitz for joining us today. Please go to the Talk About Network on YouTube, subscribe, give us a like, and hit that notification button so you know when a new episode drops. You can find this podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Kris Murray. Until next time. This podcast is sponsored by Storyline Multimedia. Storyline is an Iowa City-based media company that specializes in creating high-quality video, photo, and audio productions for local businesses. Not only that, but they also produce a number of podcasts, including this one. So if you're interested in sharing the story of your business with the world, contact them today by visiting StorylineMultimedia.com. And remember, your story matters.